I wanted to talk to you all about motorsports medicine and on-track mass casualty. I think my portion of the talk might be the most boring, but I do have a little bit of videos for you. So just to start out, we're going to talk about what is motorsports medicine, what does a career in motorsports medicine look like, and talk a little bit about, in the vein of WADM, so multi-car mass casualty triage, that might end up looking like a disaster. So the first thing is, what I like to start out is, what is motorsports? So that's the first word in motorsports medicine, and it's basically just racing. But there are so many different kinds of racing. There's open wheel with IndyCar, or something like stock cars with NASCAR, MotoGP. There's sprint cars and dirt track racing. There's rally. There's top fuel dragsters. There's sports car racing, which is near and dear to my heart. And then you have to think about, you could be at a race with about 500,000 of your closest friends. So there's a lot of different levels of racing. And you could have people in different areas that could provide you with different challenges medically and from a disaster and crowd control perspective, just like this with Rally in Sardinia. So the next thing I like to talk about is, you append another word to that, motorsports medicine. And this is usually the face that I get when I talk about motorsports medicine, is this kind of questioning look. What do you mean motorsports medicine? So just a quick primer is that it's, I like to say that it's EMS mixed with event medicine, plus sports medicine, plus occupational medicine. And there's a lot that goes into it. There is, you'll hear from the three of us that all have different kind of niches, even within this this sub niche of emergency medicine, about all different aspects of this part of emergency medicine. Just some alignment notes. I looked up the mission and vision of WADM, and if we're going to talk about the mission, I think that we're going to talk about some evidence-based improvements in transdisciplinary education tonight, talking from emergency medicine through pre-hospital medicine, disasters, and mass casualty. And I think especially when we work on track and we work in preparing for these events, we definitely are trying to promote disaster risk reduction, and some of the methods and algorithms that we have come up with and that we use in our day-to-day work on track or off track is really about risk reduction, risk mitigation, and ultimately saving lives. So my path, a little bit about me through motorsports medicine. So there's a bunch of different paths. A lot of them go through emergency medicine. I did a fellowship at Indiana University, which is a structured education where you work on the IndyCar safety team, you work at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, and Methodist Hospital through IU. A lot of different learning in event preparedness, race medicine, medical decision making, logistics, the whole 9 yards. And then another avenue of getting involved would be something called ICMS, the International Council of Motorsports Sciences. There's an annual congress. This is actually a nonprofit organization that is dedicated to promoting the science of motorsports medicine. There's monthly e-learning, things like that for people to get involved. And I do have a slide from our executive director, Tom Weisenbach, who wants everybody to click that QR code and think about signing up. I'm sorry I'm promoting one organization at another organization's thing, but if you are interested in motorsports medicine, this is a great way to get involved. And I think student memberships are like $50 a year, so it's not too bad. But there's an annual congress every December, and you know, if you are attending, you can get CME and things like that for it as well. Now, I have some videos. This is the first of that. This was my first day on the job in motorsports medicine. I can run faster than that now, I promise. So that was Simon Pagenaud at Mid-Ohio. This was hours after getting on the job as a fellow, and these are the types of things that you have to be prepared for in motorsports medicine. I'll let this play one more time because I know Zoom is a little bit wonky with videos. So those are the types of high energy mechanisms that we deal with in motorsports medicine. And then a little bit about, so that was what I learned in fellowship. Now what I do in my day-to-day for motorsports medicine is I'm medical director of the IMSA AMR track services team. I provide medical oversight, help with protocols, online medical direction for the paramedics that we bring to all of our races for IMSA. IMSA stands for the International Motorsports Association, which is an incredibly vague name that doesn't tell you anything about it. It is actually a sports car racing series that is second largest sports car racing series in the world behind WEC, probably the third largest North American racing series. I also help with training QI, and I also work as an on-track physician at Circuit of the Americas for the big events like MotoGP, F1, WEC, things like that. So what does a career in motorsports medicine look like? You know, if you do it right, you might be signing children's T-shirts at the Indy 500 because they think that you're a driver because you're wearing a helmet and a fire suit. But there are lots of different paths. You don't have to be a physician to work in motorsports medicine. There are many different avenues. But I like to talk about optimism, but realism, especially with physicians. There are not a ton of, what we call paid working positions in motorsports medicine. I happen to be extremely fortunate to, kind of be in the right place at the right time with the right training, and kind of make my own good luck to be in the position that I'm in. And outside of that, there's a ton of different volunteer opportunities to get involved with with motorsports medicine, at local tracks rather than big tracks, and everything in between. And I do like to say shifting landscapes because racing is undergoing kind of this, I wouldn't say it's a renaissance, it's more of kind of the pendulum swing towards the very popular side. I like to call it the drive to survive effect, where it is very fashionable right now to be involved in racing. And eventually that pendulum will swing back the other way, and those eyeballs and dollars will go somewhere else. And so it is kind of a fickle industry. So that's another thing to take into account if you do want to base a career on this. And then I just want to kind of switch gears just for the next few minutes to talk about my little niche in motorsports medicine, which is on-track mass casualty triage for multi-vehicle incidents. So this is kind of a little bit more of disaster preparedness in the vein of on-track mass casualty. And to define mass casualty, that means when there is more than one casualty and the available resources require a provider to initiate care for one patient over another. And that is important to keep in mind. So here is another video. This is a little giggity for you from
Dale Earnhardt Jr. to the bottom of the track. Jr. will win at Daytona.
This is crossing the finish line at Daytona several years ago.
Behind them.
Not only do you have a bunch of cars involved, so a bunch of potential injuries and patients, your field that you need to cover for your disaster is quite large. And then you have what you call pit crews or untrained responders now also on the track,
all the crews
next to
getting out to that
engines
car
and fuel
to assist
and
these
a bunch of other
drivers.
things.
thumbs going up from
There's
all
a
the crew
flaming
members,
engine right there
and
for
the
you.
crowd roars.
So this is what we would call a multi-car mass casualty scenario. In NASCAR, we call this the big one.
Junior will win at Daytona, and the big one happens behind them.
Oh my God.
So this is just one of the scenarios to keep in mind as we go through a little bit of on-track mass casualty triage. So I mentioned the definition of mass casualty incident, and then things to think about. You have less time to gather info and make decisions, and your whole kind of decision making goes from the best outcome for one patient to thinking about the best outcome for many. When I talk about a multi-vehicle incident, that means just more than one car. That is a multi-car incident. And then what we've learned from disaster medicine is that triage, accurate triage, is vital. So when we work in the emergency room, we talk about ESI triage levels and things like that, and we always kind of over triage people because we don't want to miss things. But in disasters, if you over triage people, if you think about your triage tags, red, yellow, green, black, gray, if you over triage people, you are committing resources to those patients and those victims that do not need it and taking it away from people who do. So there was a paper in the Journal of Trauma Surgery and Acute Care Surgery that showed a linear relationship with over triage and critical mortality. So what this tells us is that the more we over triage people, the more death we get. So accurate triage is really important. I am not going to go through all of the algorithms for mass casualty triage. There are a bunch of different ones: SALT, Jumpstart, START, CareFlight, Army. There's a bunch of different ones. I had a project where I came up with a kind of a motorsports kind of flavor of SALT triage. I'm just going to kind of skip some slides and show you the most important thing. This is kind of the overall thing that I wanted to show you all, is that kind of this mass casualty triage algorithm. If you do end up on track and you are working to make sure that when you're in this box, your triage and intervention, to make sure that all drivers are triaged and all drivers receive appropriate intervention. That is the checkpoint that I want really everybody to focus on when I teach this, is that when there's a lot of cars, as you saw in that big one for that NASCAR crash, communication is really important, and making sure that all the drivers are triaged, because you can have some really bad injuries hiding in those cars. Just to make sure before you move on to try to get back to green flag racing or try to get back to victory lane, that all the drivers are triaged and everybody receives appropriate intervention. I'm going to skip over a couple things and show one of our other multi-cars. This is from IMSA back at Watkins Glen this year. This is the Porsche Carrera Cup North America. This is also the first lap, and then the announcers before this go, "Oh, we had a little bit of rain before this, but we're probably going to have some clean racing." Why would they say
in the
that?
wall on the right-hand side, the championship leader in trouble early on, but he's still moving. Maybe got away with that. Has he got a puncture? No, there's a huge accident behind. That will have been the knockball. This will be a red flag, I think.
The car that I respond
We can't
in.
drive through that.
I hop out the other side, and this is what I see. I see 2 cars up the racetrack. I see 6 cars down the other side of the racetrack, separated by about a half a mile. And I'll show you the other another angle of this, just to show you
So Scott Blind
a little bit more of the mechanism that we see. And one of the things in motorsports medicine that we have the luxury of is that I'm parked just off track watching this whole thing happen, so I watch the mechanism of injury. And then my response time is seconds rather than
that wasn't the case. Richard Edge was involved there as well, going backwards into the arm core in the number 18.
So that's a little bit about my job. and I'm going to skip over a little bit more about some of the trainings that we do. But key takeaways: motorsports medicine is a thing. Over triage can kill just like under triage. And then if you are going to work in motorsports medicine or in disaster preparedness, plan and rehearse. Simulation and mental practice are really important. If you respond to a crash like this, that looks really impressive. Make sure you remember that you could be on national TV, and you should also practice trying to get over fences, because that's me carrying the cooler right there. Maybe I didn't practice going over this fence enough. I'm up and then I'm down. And I'll replay that just in case anybody didn't catch that part, with gravity working a little bit more than it should have that day in Virginia. I'm up and then I'm down. And I think the best part was like people just sending me sending me things like this.
Not the case. Car was engulfed in flame.
Thanks, James Pepe. So that is my portion. I am honored to be speaking to y'all this evening, and the people that come after me are way cooler and know way more than I do. One of them used to be my boss, and one of them is kind of right now my boss. But so they're better than I am at this. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Dr. Edwards. That was a wonderful talk. We can now turn it over to Dr. Vaizer if she's able to share her screen.
If I can figure out how to unshare.
Only one presenter can share at a time. Replace current share. There. Let me get in position. Do you guys see slides or not the right stuff? Right stuff or not right stuff?
Slides now, yep.
Leonard, that was awesome. That was outstanding. This is the first time I've seen you give this lecture. This is really good. That was very enjoyable. Thank you for sharing that. I will never stop laughing at you falling. That was so graceful, so perfect. Team, thanks so much for having us. It's really exciting to talk to y'all. It's hard to follow Leonard, I'm not gonna lie. That was very thoroughly prepared slides and lots of educational material. I did not come with actual educational material. I mostly came with entertainment. So my plan is to tell you specifically about one race. So myself, I'm a medical director for the NTT IndyCar series and the medical director for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I have an incredible team taking care of our drivers on the road of doctors and nurses. I have an outstanding team of doctors and nurses and medics and EMTs and a physical therapist taking care of our drivers and guests of the venue, everybody at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, not only for IndyCar events, but for all the series that come to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. We were just reflecting back. We had close to 70 days of Open Infield Care Center this past season. And today was actually the last scheduled event for the season. So we're actually getting to take a little bit of time off. So with all of that, I will talk to you only about one race, and that's the Indy 500. I'll tell you a little bit about what this race is, why do we care, who cares, and how do we prepare medical response for that race. So all the images and videos that I'm going to share are all part of IndyCar and Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I will not be having any HIPAA disclosures, and there's no extra financial disclosures, unfortunately. So this is Indianapolis Motor Speedway. This is back in 1909. This predates the Indy 500. This is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway for the 300-mile Wheeler-Shepler Trophy race. Back then, they raced on dirt and gravel, which is, as you can imagine, not fantastic. At that time, one of the coolest things happened, which was work of drivers with series and leadership to prevent further injury. After this race, drivers came to the leadership and they said, hey, this was not safe. Lots of people died. Let's not do this again. So what they did is they repaved the entire 2.5-mile oval with 3.2 million bricks, and giving the name to the Indianapolis Motor Speedway of Brickyard. which many of you have probably heard. This is the Indianapolis Motor Speedway today. If you guys have never been here before, this is to give you a general idea of how freaking big this place is. So it's a 2.5-mile oval, and inside of it is everything that we refer to as infield. So if you hear me say infield, it means inside of the oval. There's grandstands on the outside as well, but everything that's infield, that's 560 acres of land. For those of you who are like me and can't picture numbers and spaces so well, this is the Vatican City, occupying about 1/3 of the space, the Yankee Stadium, the Taj Mahal, the Churchill Downs, the Rose Bowl Stadium, whatever point of references you have, all of that fits into the inside of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. So it's the 2.5-mile oval. It also is a 2.6-mile road course. There's also a dirt track within this track. And there's also an 18-hole golf course. So you can actually play golf while cars are on track, which is really cool. But most importantly, it's home to the Indy 500. And pardon me if the sound doesn't work because I forgot to test it, but I hope you can hear it.
The best days on the sporting calendar.
So as you can tell, Indy 500, big deal, big exciting race. I'm sure you see the energy of the winning the race. You see the energy of all the folks in the stands. You see how crowded the stands are. You see the crashes happening on the track. You see people fighting in the snake pit. So let's dissect a little bit more. So what is the Indy 500? It used to be called it's still called. The full name is the Indianapolis 500-mile race. So if that answers it all for you, that's kind of where it started. It's 200 laps around our 2.5-mile oval, so that's 500 laps. 500 miles. Back when it first started in 1911, the cars used to travel about, I don't know, I think the average speed was in the 90s miles per hour. So it used to be a truly full day event from racing perspective. It used to take more than 6.5, 7 hours to complete the race. Nowadays, our cars traveling about 230 miles an hour. So it takes about, I don't know, 3 hours, depending on how many yellow and red flags we have to actually complete the race, but it still is a full day event. And in fact, I would be lying to you if I said it's a one-day event. It's a whole month of May event. We host a IndyCar Grand Prix in the beginning of the month. We host a mini marathon for the city of Indianapolis. And then every single day we have practice on the oval. We have qualifying sessions. It's a whole month of festivities for anybody from the state of Indiana, especially from the city of Indianapolis and Town Speedway. It's a big historic event. It has now, this past year, we hosted our 109th Indy 500. So as you can imagine, for a lot of people, this is part of our culture. So there are so many families and there's so many people who attend this year after year, where we come nearly to selling out. In fact, we did sell out last year, and it was a busy day. If you think about logically, the 1911, that was not really 109 years ago, but that's because we had two pauses, one for the World War I and one for World War II. So how do we set up medical response for an event of this size? To give you an idea, this is about 0.9 mile in length is the racetrack, and it is 0.45 miles in width. So when we're thinking of medical response, we have to cover an area of that size. So when you're thinking about your EMS response, when you're thinking about standing up your ambulances, positioning them, you have to think about how long will it take to get it from point A to point B. So how crowded does it get? So not only we're covering the space and the physical space, we also have to think about the people. This is typical grandstands. This is not an outstanding day in the life of the Indy 500. This is pretty annual. It's the only year that really stands out to me that's different is the COVID year, because we had no fans. The Indy 500 still happened. It was postponed, but it happened. But we had no fans that year. So it becomes really crowded. Every year we get more than 300,000 people there. We hold the record for the largest single-day sporting event in the world. So it is a really, really busy and humanly packed day. It becomes second largest city in Indiana on the day of the 500. So when we're thinking of medical response, when we're thinking of providing care to drivers, guests of the venue, when we're thinking about providing the response, our duty is not only to the spectators and guests of the venue and the drivers, our duty is to the city of Indianapolis, because the life goes on outside of our track. So if everything goes smoothly, we're now a city within a city where typical medical emergencies and traumatic injuries in a city of that size that would emerge. Now add weather, add elements exposure, add overindulging and celebrating and having a good time. You don't want to flood your EDs and overwhelm your EMS system. So when we think about mass gathering goals, we have to think about provision of on-site event medical care, right? So rapid access to the patient. How are you going to get to your spectators that are in the middle of the snake pit, surrounded by humans? Something that Leonard talked a lot about is triage. We want to make sure that this is somebody that can be taken care of on the grounds of the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Maybe they do not have to be transported out. Maybe it's in their best interest to be transported to a trauma center, to a hospital that is outside of here without any delay. Important to think about stabilization, whether we are able to provide that stabilization at our first aid stations or our first point of contact in our medical tents, or if it's something that needs to come to our infield care center, or if it's something that needs to go, again, all the way through. It's important to avoid needless and delay in transport. So we stand up our own dispatch center, we stand up our own EMS response. So we do not rely on having to call 911. We do not rely on having to call transfer center. We actually have our own little EMS agency within Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And of course, on-site treatment of minor illnesses and injuries. It's really important for us to be able to treat our patients and let them go back out there. They came here not to be seen at the infield care center and have an injury that ends their day. They were really excited to attend the Indy 500. So we do everything that we can, as long as it's safe for our patients, to just turn them around and get them back to their seats so they can enjoy the rest of the race. And as I mentioned already, it's really important to preserve functionality of your local EMS. Again, life goes on. The city of Indianapolis, strokes still happen, heart attacks still happen, people still need help. We cannot overburden that resource. So when we're thinking about the guests of the venue, this is where we position all of our ambulances. We rely a lot on our knowledge from the past 100 years, but every 500 we review in terms of where we see most of our responses to, where we see most of our people gathering. So we will try to stage our ambulances in those areas of response. We will also think through our ingress and egress routes. So for example, you see several ambulances staged on the outside instead of the inside, and that's mostly because these tunnels, the one underneath North Vista, the one underneath Holman Terrace, they cannot take the standard size ambulances. So we have to think, if we have an emergency in grandstands that are outside, how we're going to get our response out to them without having to drive all the way through the south chute and drive all the way around the track. So we're trying to stage our resources in such a way that we can get to our patients as quickly as possible. But we also have carts. So again, our carts are much smaller. They cannot transport outside of the track. Everybody that they will collect, they will bring to our infield care center. but they will provide ALS level of care en route, and they're able to get to essentially almost anywhere on the track around the track. We have 13 first aid stations all scattered throughout. They see very large volume of patient contacts on the day of the 500. They're all written for BLS level of care, but they're mostly staffed by nurses from IU Health. So they do have kind of specific protocols that they follow, but they can also call our infield care center and speak to a physician if they have a strange situation. But if it's anything that needs more than BLS level of care, they would call for a cart, and the cart would bring the patient to the infield care center. We also have a couple of on-foot crews that are around the bigger grandstand. So in case somebody's down and before the cart can even get there, the on-foot crews can respond and kind of climb up and render initial help while waiting for backup and transport. This is the location of our infield care center. It is closest to the main exit that will take any standard size ambulance, and it is closest to the 16th Street that will immediately bring us to our trauma center. So it is the closest proximity to our egress, and it's also really central considering the locations of both tracks, the oval and the road course, so we can think about delivering our drivers there pretty efficiently and transporting out without ever having to stop a race. We also have to think about providing care on the track surface. So everything we just briefly talked about is care for the guests and spectators. This is what we think about when we treat our drivers. So we set up 4 response trucks with our IndyCar safety team. IndyCar has its own traveling safety team that goes from race to race with the series. They're the experts on extricating out of our specific car styles. They practice regularly. They know our drivers, and they're all firefighters. Some of them are paramedics as well, but all of them are firefighter EMTs with many, many, many years of experience. We also have a physician car that is staffed by our IndyCar medical team physician. We have 6 ambulances with at least 5 of them on the track surface and 1 of them staged at the infield care center. That ambulance is dedicated to transport of injured drivers. We also have a helicopter. Honestly, the proximity to the trauma center, we will most likely go by ground most of the time. But if we ever have a situation where we have we need to transport through traffic, or if an incident happens at the end of the race where everybody's trying to exit out, we'll be able to use our helicopter for quicker transport. We also have a lot of incidents in the pit lane, as you saw in the video. So we stand up ALS carts in the pit lane specifically dedicated to just care of patients in the pit lane alone. Our infield care center is one of the oldest structures in the whole property. It is, I think, second largest structure. It is an 18-bed facility. It is obviously renovated now. It has 3 separate care areas, 2 for the spectators and 1 for the drivers. For the spectators, we have a low acuity area where we would see mostly musculoskeletal injuries, overindulgences, some gastrointestinal issues, so nothing that requires a monitor. In the high acuity area, we will see patients that require a monitor. This is where we see our chest pain, strokes, anybody who looks maybe syncopes. For those patients, we are able to provide pre-hospital trauma life support. We're able to provide ACLS and stabilization. We're able to acquire EKG. We can activate stimulants, but obviously those patients will be likely transported for definitive care if they think it's appropriate. We also have a driver care area. Driver care area, every bed, it's 4 beds. Every single bed is set up for airway management, every bed has a monitor. We carry whole blood. We have X-ray. We have ultrasound. The goal is to be able to stabilize 4 critically injured drivers at the same time, but hopefully that doesn't happen. We also have an overflow that we have to open usually about 6 hours into our day, and that is for patients who have already been treated and medically cleared, but they probably still need a little bit more time to rest and digest before they can ambulate with a steady gait back to their seat. It takes a lot of people to run something like this on the day of the 500. We staff about 9 to 10 emergency physicians, 14 to 16 emergency nurses. We have a physical therapist. We usually have somewhere between 6 and 10 emergency medicine residents doing their rotation with us in motorsports and mass gathering. And then we often have a trauma surgeon, an orthopedic surgeon, neurosurgeon, an optometrist. Those are there for mostly for the drivers, but if they had a mass casualty situation, then they would be able to help us out. There's also Snake Pit. It is a EDM concert that happens at the same time as the Indy 500 inside the same space.
Coming on racing last elements.
And it's usually we'll see about 20,000 people fill that space alone. It is about 4.5 acres of land filled with 20,000 humans. This is where the stage is. At the back of it, we have our first aid tent. That is the first contact with all of our patient encounters from the Snake Pit. We also have eyes in the sky, so to say. There is somebody from our AMR team with eyes directly on the crowd with their binoculars trying to identify any areas where it looks like there may be an injured person. If that happens, then they will dispatch an on-foot crew into the crowd to extract that patient. This patient will then be evaluated at the first aid, and if needed, they will be transported by ALS cart to our ground zero area, where they will be either stabilized and then eventually released, or they will be sent to overflow tent, works the exact same way as the one at the care center, or they will be transported to ambulance. The ground zero is stood up by our IU School of Medicine EMS division, so it's a bunch of EMS docs and EMS fellows and our EM nurses running that place, and they mostly see various toxicologic emergencies, overheating injuries, and we keep joking it's about the chief complaint du jour. So something a couple years ago, one of the coolest things to do in the Snake Pit was to throw glass bottles up in the air and see where they land. So at some point they were running out of staplers to keep stapling the scalp lacerations that patients were getting. So we just talked about everything that if things go well, if things do not go well, there's a lot of preparation that goes on for the Indy 500. I want you to quickly watch this video and see if you pick up on what I'm talking about when we're thinking about preparations and planning.
Frozen Quest, proof that gel car. Felix in the wall, big time. This is going to be a big hit right here. I don't know if he's going to keep it onto the turn 2 wall. Oh, no. Ooh. This will be a red flag, almost certainly. Huge.
All right, I'm going to stop that because I know I'm already like way over time. But that tire, I'm sure you all saw the tire fly off the car and disappear into the sunset. It was terrifying to watch it in the moment because if you look at the history of motorsports medicine, it used to be something that happened not infrequently and resulted in a lot of injuries and fatalities. We put so much effort into prevention of debris out into the grandstands, but it's always a risk at motorsports events. So obviously this incident was thoroughly investigated by IndyCar, and changes were made and things were fixed like we normally do, constantly trying to improve moving forward. But what if this tire didn't hit anyone? That's exceptional. But what if it did? So we're constantly preparing for a possibility of something horrible happening at the Indy 500. So how do you do it? So first of all, you've got to figure out what kind of resources you have available. So we are a Tier 2 event. I don't know if you guys know about Tier system, but it is special events assessment rating tool. It is offered by the Homeland Security, and it gives you access to various support. So level 1 would be something like papal visit or Super Bowl event. So it gives you extensive federal interagency support. We're tier 2 level event, and it gives us a lot of support. So if you're ever planning an event, this is something to look into, because you may have a lot of access to things that you don't realize. So emergency action plan is something that you have to have for every event of that scale. Honestly, even if it's a small scale, I still urge you to have an emergency action plan. You want it to be very thorough but easy to comprehend. You want to make sure that you're familiar with your emergency action plan and it has details for various things that can happen. So you do not want to be, it's reasonable to be super vague, but I urge you to consider writing out specific instructions for various circumstances. So for us, we don't only cover the full spectrum of C. Bernie, but we also have to think about threats such as severe weather, mass shootings, and even the race car debris into the grandstand, just like you saw. As you know, preparedness is all about building relationships and communication. On the day of the 500th, we have more than 40 agencies in fields represented, taking care of our guests and keeping everybody safe. So it's very important for all of us to get together far in advance with the key representatives. And we do so by coming together at a tabletop, practicing. We're often, every year we will have a situation that is presented to us that we have to work through and kind of practice together, do a response to a threat, which is really cool, nerve-wracking, but is also very important. We also have a very thorough MCI plan that is oriented around activating agencies outside of our immediate zone without compromising their 911 response. So kind of pulling from one asset from various agencies all across the nearby counties with focus to minimize the burden to local service. And it's really important to make sure that you have interoperability between all of these agencies, make sure you have ability to communicate situations that are going on. And it's really important to be able to communicate if you have a major threat to your local hospitals and kind of let them know that this is happening. All right, I'm rushing through because I think we were given like a way smaller time than I am taking on. But ways to get involved: if you guys are an emergency medicine resident and you're interested in learning more, you can apply to do an away rotation with us at IU during the month of May. So we have residents come and spend the entire month of May with us learning about mass gathering and motorsports. And of course, Leonard already talked to you guys about our fellowship, which is a fantastic way to spend a year getting to know more about on-track response and learning from some of the best in the industry, and learning not only from NASCAR and Indianapolis Motor Speedway, but also from NASCAR and IMSA. Oh, hey, Stanton, I forgot to tell you, please come back. Sorry, I was supposed to give him a cue like a long time ago to be ready to present. But also from Formula One and from IMSA and from SRO and from motorcycles. So if you guys are at all interested in doing the fellowship, please don't hesitate to reach out. So that's my slide. Thank you so much.
Yeah, Julie, that wasn't a problem. I was listening in. So the reason it's the case, we're talking about the, give me the cue, is the fact that I am at my daughter's regional volleyball tournament in Southern Kentucky. When we made this booking, I didn't realize they were going to advance and be down here. So I'm actually sitting in the school cafeteria with the sports going on right over there. I went and watched part of the first set. I'm monitoring on my phone the second set. And so I'm hoping I'll be able to catch the back end of the third set. But I appreciate it. And thank you to Leonard and Julia for being willing to go first to give me a little bit of time in there to scream and yell for a few minutes to be cool. Since I knew I was going to be in Southern Kentucky, I didn't want to trust my technology to be able to spread the slides. So I wanted to bring that up here. And so this will be the old-fashioned version of next slide kind of stuff. And I apologize for that. So this is actually one I put together for part of our education orientation for our team members. And when we got this invitation to come on board, I immediately said, all right, I need Leonard and Julia to come with me and do this, because the three of us, though our series compete for airtime, we, as the physicians within motorsports, covering the vast majority of major U.S. motorsports, and now starting to get some of the international potentially as well. We work together very closely, and our goal is to cross-pollinate and advance motorsports across the country at every series. Go ahead and go to the next one. And the big thing we're looking at is, they say why emergency medicine. It used to be orthopedics, used to be neurosurgery, used to be, all kinds of physicians that are out there. You still see some on occasion, the medical director or CMO for the Mexico City track, where they just had the Formula One races last weekend, is an ENT doc. But for us, it was because, especially in NASCAR and the stock cars, it's not trauma that's our biggest deal. It is traditional stuff. They're on the road 38 weeks a year. The inside of the cars is going to reach hideous temperatures, and they're in there for hours on end. And so it really is the traditional emergency medicine type stuff, because a lot of these tracks are in the middle of nowhere. So it's not like we've got the blessing of Daytona or Indianapolis or wherever, where we just have relatively good support structure around there. That talk I give is called Metropolis in a Cornfield, because we take 150,000 people and wedge them into the middle of nowhere USA, and then completely overwhelm the medical resources. So we bring in some of that stuff. And so this is actually our initial medical director for the AMR safety team, and Dr. Angie Feege, and she now is one of the assistant directors. I think she's, her official title is medical director of Indy NXT, right? Is that what it is?
Yeah, so she is the medical director for the Indy Next, and she is the deputy medical director for IndyCar and Indianapolis Motor Speedway.
So she's fantastic. She got our team going in the collaboration with the IndyCar team and bringing in IMSA. It's been fantastic. Let's go ahead and go next. I don't know if this one's a video or not. It's not. All right. So people want to know how it happens. I came along and got into this well before there's any such thing as a Motorsports Fellowship, which I would have done in a heartbeat. But I graduated med school in 2003, grew up in Bristol, near Bristol, Tennessee, loved going to the races, and had the opportunity when I moved to Kentucky, to work Kentucky Speedway, because it's not basketball, so none of the other residents wanted to do it. So I got to go make a little cheddar, a little extra money going out there and working the races. I loved it, got to watch them. They paid me to be there. And then as I moved along, after Kentucky Speedway, met people through the American College of Emergency Physicians, got the opportunity to work at Talladega Super Speedway as well. Our team came about in 2017 as a request from drivers, and became medical director in 2020. We added SRX to that too. We added USF. IMSA team has been part of ours as a little carve out as well. And who knows what's next? We have conversations going. But the beauty is that it's a formal acknowledgement of the growth and importance of safety in motorsports. We understand the inherent risks of the sports, but it shouldn't be an expectation. It shouldn't be like what we've had in the past, or when Julia was showing the initial Indianapolis Motor Speedway before they had bricks, where they didn't put seatbelts in at that time because they felt like you'd be safer if you got slung free of the car, was the simple fact that we want to put forth the entertainment and the sport with the maximum amount of safety possible. So be part of the show, but not becoming the show. All right, let's go next. And so making it happen is the way. Hopefully I didn't have any pictures there. Yeah, just go through those. This is just me. Hey, that was me when I was young, when I was almost Leonard's age there, when I looked so young. And then all this stuff. All right. So why is it EM? Why is it some of these EMS? Why is it these aspects of medicine? It's because it's this convergence of the passion that we have, as emergency medicine tends to have, or frontline medicine, EM-based, critical care-based may have, the impact on the people and the gifts and skills. If you've heard of the Japanese kind of ikigai aspect of things, that's really what this is. It's the idea of combining your passions, your skills, how you can make some money doing it, and then what the society needs. And bringing all of that together is really what motorsports medicine is all about. I don't know what just happened. It's huge. But I'm going to have to check this sport because somebody got really loud for some reason. Maybe the other team just won. They shouldn't have. All right, let's go to the next slide. I mean, even better, go one more, because then I get to go see the fourth set. But this is our team. This is what's important to us. What you don't see when you see the races on TV is all of us working together. And in this picture is representation from IndyCar, IMSA, USF, NASCAR, all of us training together. And we're actually working on it again this year. And just to see the different perspective, because Sports cars are very different from open wheel cars. They're very different from stock cars. The environment is very different. And so we want to train and have our people to where we can cross pollinate. I want my medics that we hire, that I'm going through the hiring process now, to be able to do all of these series. I want them to have exposure. And so that when Leonard is in need of coverage, he's got it. Or when I'm in need of coverage for one of our races, we've got it. You know, we tend to have the largest team for NASCAR simply because there's 38 race weekends of some nature, 36 points, and it's the longest season. And so we just have the highest number in terms of the medical aspect of it. The IMSA safety team and the IndyCar safety team, the track response, the track safety is a larger team because NASCAR puts that on the local tracks and local environment to do it, whereas we bring the medical assets with us. Next slide. So that picture was actually taken. But we're going to run some scenarios, but the thing that's important for us is the fact that everything we do is under hundreds, if not thousands, or tens of thousands of cameras. And so you're not going to escape. This is one that's just a fence camera. This is my second year on the team, second year with the uniform. But you can see I'm right there, about 4 feet in front of it, getting a driver out of the car that's up against the safer barrier at Bristol Motor Speedway. But just as this happens, there's thousands of people in the stands with their cameras, taking videos and pictures and putting them on social media. And I can tell you right now, everybody knows how to do our job better than we do, at least on social media. Every one of them has a way that we could have done it better. And so we're going to do this one right here. This one's one of the biggest fears for drivers. And this, you can go ahead. You can go ahead and run it. This is fire. All right. So this is the drivers. If you ask them what they're afraid of, it's fire. Now, one thing I want you to, the irony of this particular is watch the truck that hits this truck in the back. Their sponsor is New York Fire Department. So that actually works out pretty well. So FDNY, they were right there on the scene. Immediate response is amazing. Unfortunately, they didn't have any of their own fire gear or anything like that. But for us, the fire is important. There's fire suppression, but when it comes to the biggest injuries we have seen on the NASCAR side, a lot of it is these fires that extend into the driver compartment, the heat that's in there. I mean, we're already talking about the fact that these cars are 130 to 150 degrees without the fire. Now you have fire, smoke, inhalation injuries. So even if they stop right away, this last weekend at Talladega, we had Norm Benning hit the wall, caught on fire at the turn 1. He stopped by the end of turn 2, but that's still almost a mile of travel. And probably around 30 seconds that he's in there, he's already hypermetabolic. So he's already breathing fast. He said, I tried to hold my breath as long as I can, but I couldn't take it any longer. Breathing in, now you're breathing in all the smoke from the outside. And so the airway related issues are something important for us to consider. Let's go to the next one. Can't remember what the next one is. Oh, the roof resting. This for us, and Julie already showed you one of theirs that was roof resting. We have roof resting too. And the goal for us is to have our vehicles back on their wheels within 2 minutes of them going on there. And this one I took right at 2 minutes. You see, he slid probably a quarter of a mile, if not more, on the roof of this vehicle. Now he's upside down. We want the drivers to stay connected in. If they're okay, we say leave on your belts, leave them tight, because it's holding them in place. If they release that belt, now they get crunched up against the roof of the truck or the vehicle, and now we have an emergency. Now we got an airway issue with them getting compressed down. And so what we want to do, we run up to the vehicle, make sure they're okay, give the thumbs up, talk with the driver, let them know what's going to happen next, because they're panicking. They're not used to seeing the track from upside down. And so they're panicking. All they want to do is get as far away from as possible. Every other minute of the week, they want to get into a car. At this moment, they want to get as far away as possible from the car. So what happens is our tow truck will pull up on the driver's side. We roll it against the driver. Then you'll see the Chase 2. He's going to grab the rollover kit, which is a bag that actually has a kit with straps in it that are designed. They hook it up to the roller. And this is a very orchestrated. Now you see the 99 truck. That's the track position that's going to be there as well. So that's the track position right there that's being led to the vehicle. Our position is, or the medic is already there. Position will be there in a minute because they had to travel 2 miles to get there. He is. There's our physician walking up right there. And so this is a very orchestrated event that we have. Once we are there, our goal is that we are in eyesight of the driver the entire time. We are there to coach the driver, to give them the expectations, and then say, we will be visible to you the entire time. All right, let's go to the next one. The rollovers are always the one everybody wants to see. It's not the highest energy. It's dissipated over a significant amount of distance. It's the centripetal forces there. All right, there's wall and fire. Now, this may be the one that concerns me the most, because I believe the vehicle ends up wedged up against the wall. And so now I've got a safer barrier that's 3 feet tall, and the truck is wedged up against it. Now, trucks are a little bit higher than cars, but does it wedge them in? Can they get out of the vehicle even when it stops? We've had drivers getting out of their vehicle while it's still rolling as it hits the inside wall. That's Terry. He's one of our track services climbing up there. That's our other track services. There comes my guy that's hopping up on the wall. So this is not an area. I'm 48 years old. There's a reason I have to keep going to the gym pretty constantly, is because I don't want to be the person on national TV and every meme falling into the wall or falling down off the banking of these tracks. The banking is the worst. If you go to Daytona or Talladega, you've got 30-degree banking. It is very easy to fall down that bank. I don't want to be that person. That's what I instruct our folks the entire time: is do everything, be awesome. Don't become part of a training video that's not ideal for our team. And I mean, we get enough of it when people blame other stuff on us, workers that aren't our people and things like that. So we want to make sure the red, white, and blue that we're seeing out there is pretty consistent throughout. Next, let's go to the next. All right, so this is actually from Leonard's world. We cover this as well. Situational awareness. You never know. And Leonard mentioned whammo. Leonard mentioned that, it's the 3 bears. It's the Goldilocks approach to responses. We don't want too much. We don't want too little. We want just right. And the challenge is we are going out to race environments where there's still action. There's cars going around. Sometimes in environments, whatever got the wreck going or the result of the wreck, oil, the fluids, the rain, whatever, we have to be careful, because I tell our folks, the only thing worse than 1 victim is 2 victims. The only thing worse than 2 victims is when the second victim was the person that was going to help the first person. And so the main thing we have is we want to make sure that our workers, our staff are safe, that everybody who's working at the track is safe. 1, you're not getting paid enough to become a hood ornament. But 2, we want to be able to make sure that we're there to help and that everybody goes home safely. The drivers signed up for this, knowing that there's risks involved. And so we want to make sure that we are as safe as possible to continue to be able to provide for our drivers. And then once we clear the drivers, we have what we call the OSHA roll. The OSHA is where we stand back, kind of keep an eye on the scene, and look for areas where people are going to get themselves in trouble. Maybe it's under the back end with a tow. Maybe it's, near a cable, a tow cable, something that could snap. Maybe it's with oncoming traffic, damaged vehicles that can come in there. There's a lot of potential things. So even like this, where you think the wreck is done, this was actually a disabled vehicle. Somebody didn't see it and came up and just smoked it. We had that in NASCAR a couple of weeks ago at Las Vegas, where a car didn't know that another vehicle was cutting across to get to the pits and probably hit them at a closing speed of probably 80 miles per hour. Here, the closing speed was probably well over 100 miles per hour. And that shows the damage. I mean, it shows the resilience. And this is exactly what I was talking about with regard to the risks associated with it. So this is the Roval. This is when we turn Charlotte into a road course. And as much as NASCAR cars, like your normal cars, should be okay in the rain, they're not. We don't do well in the rain at all. And so in this situation, we're responding to this wreck. And you see there's a car wedged up under the tires. Well, these cars kept coming in and wrecking because they couldn't handle the turn. There may have been fluids on the track. When it rains, it lifts the oil up. It's on top, so it's very slick. And they just kept ramming into this wreck scene. And so when we showed up, we had to make sure that, 1, we were aware, 2, the visibility was awful. And 3, we had to stand back and be ready in case any other car decided to join us in that area until they could get it red flagged. Once they got it red flagged and everybody stopped, and you have a lot more room to work. But in this situation, we pulled that vehicle out there. It's 14 or 44. We pulled it out. He had a tow strap, but it broke. And so they had to tie the strap to the axle, pulled him out. Well, then he had to put off the brake, and it rolled up and put the strap up against the axle. The driver wanted to keep starting the vehicle. And my job then as OSHA roll was, no. Do not start the car. Do not start the car. You cannot start the car until I say you start the car. So, it's the idea of this dynamic environment that's happening every moment. You can train and prepare. That's what we do. But every scene is different. It's like every single emergency is different. Every Street response is different. They're all a little bit different. Let's go to the next one. Then, of course, the big one. This is Daytona 500. This is my first race as the medical director for GMR Motorsports and the EMR safety team. And I'm at home. This is a Monday race because of rain. Shocker, it rains every day in Florida at 3 o'clock. And so our race ends up on Monday a lot. Well, this one was a huge wreck. I'm watching it from my living room. I automatically start to get reflux watching this happen because I saw the dynamics that were there as soon as it happened. And it'll show it here in a minute. And I'm sitting there watching, and you see this liquid draining from the vehicle on the right side of the car. They'll go back to it right here. This draining out. And I thought, oh my gosh, that's fuel. It's oil. And thankfully it did not catch on fire. But I got a driver that's against the track there with fluids draining out, fire coming from the gas tank. And we're responding, make it there. I believe the actual first truck took about 12 to 14 seconds. Our vehicle was there within about 20 seconds. You'll see our folks start to run up right here and start to check on the driver. And one of the interesting pieces that you're going to see here, and this is one thing that Leonard showed, is the teams want to come out there. Teams do not make getting a driver out safer. If I wanted to pick up the car and carry it through the infield, sure, I can take all those people. But honestly, the worst thing that happens at Daytona is they stop there at the end of pit road, and the pit crew guys, because they're friends, they run out there and try to help. That's not help. They need to stand back, let us do our job. You don't see us jumping up there during a pit stop and start changing a couple of tires and me holding a gas can and those types of things. Let people do their own jobs because we're actually trained for it. Watch right here. This is very interesting. When he comes through, you see that he gets hit right there over the driver's door when he's partially angled. Now watch. I want you to see the frame of this vehicle. That's a hard hit already. Probably a 40, 50 G hit. But watch right here. Right into the driver's door, and the entire frame flexes. Almost like a boat. And so not only did it hit over the driver and flex the frame, the amount of force that was there, but now when we're cutting this car apart, we rolled it over and cutting it apart. All of that energy that's twisted into that metal gets released. So you have to be really careful when that happens because now you have the potential of a secondary injury. All right, let's go next. I think that was the last one, I believe. And so that's us. The big one here, we talked about the flexing, we talked about the cars. Interestingly, his life was probably spared from a bar he pioneered called the Newman bar, which is an extra bar that goes over the driver's head. He was probably partially saved because of that. He walked out of the hospital just I believe the next day. But it was within a couple of days he walked out. And the most disheartening aspect of the walking out of the hospital was he walked out of the hospital without shoes on. And I thought that is brave. That's probably more brave than getting in that car, is walking around a full hospital without any shoes on. But he didn't catch anything, so it turned out all right. Next one. So that being said, I appreciate it. Thank you so much for having us in here. We'd love to have you guys out to a race. This is my contact information. I have a podcast called ASAP Frontline, and I'll be pretty busy coming up with the president-elect and president aspect of ASAP. But feel free to reach out, contact us. We'd love to have you and help you if you're interested, work forward. And if I can tell you one thing, get with that local track, get with people within the industry, and it's not going to be fast. Be patient. It takes time. For me, my first race working was 2005, and I joined this team in 2017. And that's just about building relationships and building time and getting experience and then expanding. And now it's even saturated more because of the great work of Dr. Vaizer, who was the first of the graduates from the Motorsports program. And then she's continued it on with her and the colleagues up at IU. So this is it's a great team, great qualified, and appreciate everything. If you got any questions, I think you can answer them. And I'm not sure what's going on, but it sounds like it's awesome over here. Hopefully it's us winning.
Well, thank you so much, Dr. Oh, go ahead.
Hey, this is Mark Wayne. I'm kind of the old guy here. I started in the 60s at Continental Divide Raceway in Colorado Springs when I was doing a surgical residency before I went to Vietnam. So I'm probably older than any of your parents. But I drove for 20 years at Laguna Seca. I put my little picture in the chat. And I work, Julia, I work with Mike, with O, and with Jeff. I got a chance to really enjoy time with them. Irony is that Mike was a patient in Vietnam at my hospital after he crashed a helicopter. So, what goes around comes around. There's no 6 degrees of separation. We all represent each other. And I hope that the younger people listening to this can realize your career will morph and evolve in a direction that you take it. Look at you three. You know, the old guy Ryan on the end, maybe he doesn't count, but look at what you all have done and how capable you've become. And I do appreciate what happens in these raceways. And I hope all the rest of you will take the opportunity that they're offering you to go see them, to go spend time with them, and to learn the skills of this particular aspect of emergency and critical care. Thanks, guys, for letting me say something.
And if you know Dr. Wayne, if you've ever used the Cook Wayne catheter, that's who created it right there. And we have a fantastic interview coming up. I've interviewed him before because his stories are insane with regard to that. And his company had the vast majority of the commercial airline cookie industry for years. So if you ever get a chance to sit down with Dr. Wayne, it is well worth every minute of it. Just make sure you're going to need to have more than minutes because he is a heck of a storyteller and does have a number of great stories. And Dr. Wayne, I've got our podcast still ready to release here in a couple of weeks from SA in Salt Lake City.
Well, Dr. Stanton, Dr. Vaizer, Dr. Edwards, thank you so much. These were all fascinating
I
talks.
see Morgan.
And we do have
Morgan,
questions in the next 15 minutes. So we'll go
Perfect.
to
Let's
start
do
with
it.
Morgan.
Hi, good evening. My name is Morgan. Thank you so much for your time. For those of us who are not emergency medicine trained, but come to critical care through different pathways, whether it be anesthesia, internal medicine, or surgery, I guess, is there a role for us with that background, and how would your advice change?
There's a role for any physician in motorsports. I'm not even joking. There's whether you involve directly with on-track response, but that's honestly the smallest part of what I do. There's a lot of what we do is planning. There's a lot of taking care of people who are critically injured and helping them on the path to recovery to get them back in the car. So any specialty out there, family medicine, sports medicine, neurology, you can find your niche. Now, when it comes specifically to critical care, obviously you will be taking care of our drivers when they are critically ill and trying to get better. And this is really important to get them back to their state. If you want to get more involved in specifically motorsports medicine, I probably would. Unfortunately, our fellowship is only for emergency medicine. It's just the way it's designed for School of Medicine for funding. However, you don't need to go through the fellowship to be an outstanding motorsports physician. It's just a path, right? Exactly right. Like, it's just a path, and it's something that we get to do because it's fun, because we like educating, and this is such a cool opportunity to do so. But you can look around the tracks nearby. See, most of the tracks in the U.S. are excited to have capable physicians coming to help out. And through that, you build up your experience, you build up your reputation. With critical care skills, you can do a lot of things when it comes to stabilizing people. And honestly, the only skills that I think you'll have to beef up is basic urgent care stuff that you probably don't get to see very, very often in your position. Guys, I don't know if you have any other ideas.
And Julia, thanks for taking because my audio froze for a moment. But yes, I completely agree. You know, I think the predominance of U.S.-based on-track response is emergency physicians now. It doesn't take a village. It doesn't mean there aren't opportunities. The fellowship is fantastic because I think it takes away a lot of that kind of years of just kind of being there for these races that may take one or two events a year. And so the 12 years before I had the opportunity to be part of this team, I think the fellowship is fantastic at being able to compact that and give that kind of intensive introduction to motorsports. But you look at Talladega. Talladega has an orthopedist that goes to every race that's in there. They've got a family physician that's in there every race to take care of folks. You look at the neurologists that we have with us. You look at some of the referral folks that we have. I mean, we deal with everything. I mean, if you look at Talladega, it's basically the busiest emergency department in the state of Alabama for 4 or 5 days. Ours, when we were at Kentucky Speedway, we had a heat wave. Ours was the busiest in Kentucky for 3 straight days. And, so you have to, it takes all of us. And I think the education and opportunities and learning that we have there, and just one thing I want everybody to keep in mind is when I started my passion and love and working with motorsports, the job I have right now did not exist. And so don't think about your opportunities within motorsports in terms of the framework of what exists right now, because the job that may be your dream job may be one that doesn't even exist yet. And so kind of build those relationships, get into the environment, and then, good humans get good jobs and good opportunities. And so, continue to kind of dive in there, build that time.
Thank you.
Thank you for the great question. I'm going to go to one in the chat, and then we have one hand up on the line. So the chat question is essentially just asking about opportunities for individuals who are located outside of the US, which is a big portion of our member base. So if you have recommendations for those who are in Australia or other countries, what would those be?
If there's anything that I can tell you is that people want to go fast everywhere. And, speed is a universal language. I just spent a couple weeks ago, I went to a motorsports conference in Mexico City, spoke there, spent the entire weekend with the medical director / CMO of FIA. Great relationship, loves the way we're all trying to build up. I think there's fantastic opportunities. And I think no matter where you are, it's about getting involved with the local track. If you look at FIA, they've got a huge footprint around the world. You look at all of the individual racing series, rallycross or rally-based series are huge in Europe and other parts of the world. There are opportunities, and it may not look like this, or it may not look like Indianapolis Motor Speedway or Watkins Glen, but it's racing, and you can get involved. And I can tell you right now, for a lot of the countries out there, there is a huge opportunity because they're where we were 10, 15 years ago before our teams came together and started all working. So there's a lot of opportunities out there. There's a lot of places that are still using non-medical people to do a lot of the medical-based jobs and response. And so being able to change culture to say, this is why we do it, because we want to make it better for everybody. We want to keep the entertainment value, but we also want to make sure everybody's safe on the track and around the track, especially rally racing. If you look at rally racing, that scares the hell out of me every single time I see it. I've got these cars going 150 miles per hour, jumping past fans on the side of the hill with their cameras waving, thinking they're safe because it's a berm. There's a lot of huge opportunities around the world to improve motorsports. And so be involved. And if you need help, I can help you connect with people. All of us have connections around the world with motorsports, and ICMS is a great example of that. Because a lot of the involvement there came from our European series. So there's a lot of great opportunity.
Yeah, I was just going to plug ICMS because it's when we say International Council of Motorsport Sciences, it really is international. So a lot of the people from South America and Australia and Asia and Europe all come to our annual Congress. And these are people who are, CMOs of all of the local FIA events, or the delegate for their country for FIA events. So when you join ICMS, there is like this whole contact list that you can start going through for your different country. And then just to echo, Google Maps the closest racetrack to you and email them or call them and see what events they have and tell them what you can offer and go out there and volunteer, because that's the best way to figure out what you want to do. And like Ryan was saying, a lot of times what you want to do may not exist yet, but you got to figure out what it is that you can contribute in what you want to do. The best way to do that is to do it.
That's really good advice. Also, honestly, when I was starting out, I sent so many cold emails that went into the void and never got returned. Just keep sending them. Eventually it will land in front of the right eyes. Think about opportunities that are offered outside of your country too, in terms of beefing up your training experience. As an intern, I found the only class that at the time that I could find that was offered for motorsports medicine, and it was in Germany. It was in German. I didn't speak German. I went to Germany and I took that class in German. just because I really wanted to find people that were like me and, excited about motorsports medicine. So look around you. I don't know specifically about Australia, but there might be trainings near you. And FIA mandates a lot of training too for series, for tracks to maintain their certification. So you can look into what kind of classes they attend and see if you can volunteer your time. Something like Leonard mentioned. Don't look for like paid opportunities just yet. They may not exist yet. Like Ryan said, you may create them, which is exciting. So just keep looking around.
Those were excellent recommendations, everyone. Thank you very much. I'll turn it over to Miranda to ask her question.
Thanks, Ryan. First of all, thank you all so much. This is really, really awesome. I wanted to ask a little bit about like the back end, like car design and engineering, and if there's a role for physicians in that. Like I'm more familiar with the world of Formula One, so I know like things like the halo, introducing like roll hoops and design. And I was just curious if you collaborate with the teams at all on any of that, like safety features, design and engineering, like outside of race day itself.
Julie, you want to talk about Melissa's role?
Yeah, outstanding question. Perfect answer for you. Yes, in fact, we do have actually a group of engineering background physicians that are trained in motorsports medicine, but are also with background in understanding of engineering. So Dr. Melissa McCarthy is one of our Motorsports Fellowship trained physicians. Hey, Melissa, hey, thanks for joining. She is working closely with Dr. Thierry Trammell, who's been doing this, for a long time. So the two of them investigate every incident that happens in world of IndyCar and Indy Next. They dissect every little brush with the wall with intensity and dedication, seeing what kind of things they can improve on car design, what kind of recommendations they can make to the engineering department. They're essentially our communication piece between pure medicine and pure engineering, because I don't speak engineering, but they do.
But the nice thing is what you do speak is kind of the physics of the physiology of human experience and interaction. And so that's what we do every Tuesday. Leonard and I jump on calls for the NASCAR properties, which IMSA is a NASCAR property. And, we have our research and development. So our scientists that do the research on cars for safety. And an example was last year. I don't know if who follows NASCAR, but you looked and they redesigned the rear clip. Well, the rear clip, which is the back hard third of the car, the reason was they were seeing these incidents in which they backed into the wall and then turned and hit the driver's side. Well, they were looking at these forces, and the forces aren't that big a deal. But then we, as the physicians, looked at the videos from inside the car. We're like, oh yeah, their body rides up in the car, their head goes back a little bit, and then they turn and they hit the left side, and then it goes out. And so it's basically an uppercut. And it's an area where you don't need force. It's the rotational velocities that are causing, neurologic symptoms within our drivers. And so we're like, okay, so how can we lengthen that deceleration and decrease that rise up in the seat as well as that rotation? So it had to do with the head surround heights as well as redesigning the rear clip. And so the physician and medical side is very important to meet up with the engineering research aspect and pull the information data together. About 50 of our drivers between our three series now wear mouthpieces, mouth guards from Wake Forest that do accelerometry and angles and all that type of stuff. And because and different people do it differently, ear molds for IndyCar, and the cars have their own basis of stuff. But this one was done by Wake Forest because the idea is the maxilla is the bone that's attached to the skull that's not theoretically going to go anywhere in case of an accident. So theoretically, it can mimic what the brain is doing inside. And so it really is pulling all of that stuff together. The science of motorsports is really just getting started in terms of the research and the data and how we can translate that to other areas of the world. But then you have people like Dr. McCarthy, who's incredible at both the engineering and the medicine side of it. And then I'm working with IndyCar as well as NASCAR. It really is amazing, how the science and the cars, the motorsports come together. I mean, you don't see that. When you see this and you watch Talladega Nights, you don't think about how much science is involved.
Amazing. I don't know if we have any other last minute breaking questions, but I just want to say thank you to our amazing cast of presenters here tonight. Thank you all for taking the time. And Dr. Stanton, I hope your daughter's winning currently.
They're in set 3. They've won the first 2, so I'm going to watch the back end of set 3, and I appreciate that. It's going to be awesome. I'm going to scream my head off, and I do want to highlight what Julia said about reaching out and continuing to reach out, because I've had several people, and just with my schedule between the jobs and everything that I do, one email is nice, and I will definitely respond. But if you continue to remind me, especially when we get around to race season, that you want to be there, there's a track you want to go to or whatever, that is the way you stay on the radar. That's the way we get involved. And you look at Dr. Sweer, who is coming up as their Motorsports Fellow. She's somebody that reached out early to me through IMRA, which is the resident association with ASAP, and got her connected. And it was something right off the bat. I said, even though you're a NASCAR fan, tell them, you need to meet up with Dr. Vaizer and be involved with this, because this is the program that's going to launch your career. And that's the thing. It's just getting the right people. It's not about reinventing the wheel. It's about who's made the wheels before and learning how they did it, and then learning those skills and just kind of get your car rolling from there.